welcome to Backpacking with Buckley. If you're new to backpacking, I hope you stick around for this video because I'm going to try to attempt to do a pretty good representation of how do you do this? Where do you start? Where do you begin? How do you plan? How do you find campsites? How do you set up camp? How do you maybe build a fire? I don't know what we'll get into, but the goal of this video is to kind of show you a day or two in the life of a backpacker and what it looks like to do this hobby. All right, before we hit the trail, one of the most important first steps is safety and logistics. In other words, planning for water, planning your mileage, planning your location, all of those things. We won't dive into detail on how to do that. With the internet, it's quite easy to figure things out, finding different apps and things to find water sources. On this particular trail, water sources are not good. So there happens to be a gravel road that intersects the trail about 8 miles down the trail. I am going to stash some water, hide it here, so I have a water cache. So that's logistics number one for this trip, is make sure I have water. All right, a few more logistics before we hit the trail. I always like to triple check everything, make sure I have everything in my bag, including my water and all of my food and necessities. Kind of do a personal inventory, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. And then today, pretty notable, it is hunting season out here in the Midwest. I think it's archery, deer and pheasant, and a couple other seasons are open right now. So I just crafted this fancy orange flag for the back of my backpack just for safety's sake. So just kind of knowing what's going on. I'm in a state forest, so hunting is allowed. Not sure that I'll see any, hope I don't, or disturb their hunting, but safety first on that. I don't want to get shot today. So once you've got all those logistics figured out and you've arrived at the trailhead, basically you put your stuff on your back and you walk into the woods. Simply put, that's backpacking. But we'll get into some more detail along the trail. All right, well, I'm on a plateau and not breathing heavy. Let's talk a little bit about navigation and safety and that factor. There's a lot of different things you can do. I usually download a map offline so that it'll work even if I don't have a signal. And I generally use the All Trails app, which there's Gaia and all sorts of other different apps. I found that by region is how you find your preference on those. So here in the Midwest, where I'm from, All Trails seems to have the best coverage of trails. And just to be extra safe, it's always wise probably to bring a paper map, a compass, all those things, should you know how to use them. But always just keeping in mind safety first, and do I know where I'm going? For example, I'm at a crossroads here and I don't see a trail blaze. So I'm not gonna walk very far either direction without either checking my map or finding a blaze. So that's navigation in a nutshell. So I'm right at about 2 miles down this trail, and I got here about lunchtime and I haven't eaten much, so important time to note. Keep your calories up when you're out here. I always say every diet is different, but if you have a 2,000 calorie diet, plan for 3,000 a day because you're going to be burning them like crazy, and then do your best to try to actually consume that many calories. Some of us struggle with appetite on trail, myself included. But make sure you're making your stops to get hydrated and get some calories in, or you're going to cramp up or hit a wall when you're 6 miles into the woods with nowhere else to go but back or forward. So a vital and survival-based question is, how much water do I need to take for this overnight? Well, that's why you plan ahead. If I had a plethora of streams all along this trail, I could bring a filter and probably get away with 1.5 of these or so and be just fine. But today I have to walk at least 8 miles to my cache, and depending on how far I get today, I plan just in case to spend the night before that. And to do that, I brought 2 of these, this is a 1-liter bottle, and then 1 of these, which just happens to be like a body armor Gatorade type of thing. But usually I fill up 1 of these with water if I don't have a Gatorade. So about 2.5 liters for an overnight. And you want to really gauge that for yourself. It's a personal thing. If it's really, really hot outside, if you know you drink a lot of water, better safe than sorry. But water is a lot of weight. So plan accordingly for your water sources, because one of the worst case scenarios is running out of this stuff. So I'm just in this beautiful little field here, and probably saw 4 raccoons out there feeding, which I know they're just raccoons, but much time as I spend in Midwest woods, you don't often see them out during the day unless they're around a dumpster or a rabbit or something. So that's a pretty neat little wildlife experience. So perhaps the most important question on how to backpack might even be more like why to backpack. And I guess my personal answer is to have fun, right? So depending on who you are, what your personality type is, that might be a variety of different things. If you're an accomplishment hiker, you might want to go out and hike 30 miles and come into camp right at sunset or after dark. If you're just enjoy nature, you might want to hike 2 miles and be to camp by noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon just to relax and take in the sights. I personally like to do both, mix it up. Accomplishments for me aren't exactly 2,000 mile through hikes, but long mile days and things like that do feel pretty good. But there's a time and a place to just soak it all in. Right now I'm just taking another little break and enjoying this little view that I'll share with you. So good news, people. I made it to 138th trail, 7 miles in, and to my water cache. So let's see if it stayed hidden and nobody stole anything. Woo! Still here. So I'm gonna find a little shade, get some water, have a snack, take a break on this lovely gravel road. Okay, so we talked about caching water, but it's probably important to go with the more traditional route, which is filtering water. Not an option on this trail. One of the only downfalls of Brent's Trail is water sources are either gross or non-existent. But I want to tell you what water filters to look for in case you are wondering in this video why I'm not talking about it. So I'll put up here just some pictures of the top 3 that I would recommend personally, and I would say most backpackers would agree. Number 1 being the Sawyer Squeeze with a Canuck bag, and I'll put a picture of both up here so you can see it. Number 2 is the Katadyn Be-Free filter. And number 3 is the new one, the Holy Grail, they call it. It's by Grail, G-R-A-Y-L, I believe. And that's a little heavier unit, but it is a new one on the market that is the only one that I know of that actually filters out viruses from the water, which isn't much of a problem in North America. But if you're extra paranoid, that seems to be like the deluxe safety filter. So those are the 3 filter options that I would recommend. And I'm just going to have a snack, my favorite, handy snacks, and continue down this road walk in pursuit of camp in the next couple of miles.
Morning. Today's forecast calls for blue skies. Sun is shining in the sky. They're in a cloud inside. It stopped raining. Everybody's in a play. And don't you know, it's a beautiful new day. Hey.
All right, we made it to camp. I'm in this little cedar grove on top of a ridge with a beautiful option for sunset tonight, so I'm excited. But the reason we're sitting here right now is I do have a little Facebook group called Backpacking for Beginners, and I did a poll on what people would like to see. So this particular video is geared towards beginners and inspired by that Facebook group. What they wanted to see was basically kind of how to backpack, what's it look like, how do you cook, how do you set up camp, etc. So right now I'm going to show you what I have in my pack, starting with a couple of waters and my luxury item of choice, which is a Rockstar. And I already showed you the Hunter Safety. This was just made from an old tarp I have. And let's start with my little mesh pocket back here. Nothing fancy here today. As a matter of fact, completely unnecessary items. My drone, which I'll be flying from that ridge tonight sometime. And then just an extra snack that I threw on the outside. Good old Doritos. So let's dig into the pack itself. I always carry one trekking pole. Even with these hills today, my fool ass did not use it, but it's handy to have. I like it for putting my hammock in porch mode, and I also feel a little bit of safety with this because it's like a ninja device. Trekking pole. If you're doing a lot of hills, you got bad knees, I would highly suggest using them and bringing 2. So let's dig into the pack. I always put, I bring a GSI coffee mug. These weigh about 3 ounces. And then on top, I generally usually put my food bag so I can access it during the day if I want snacks. But I have a backup snack plan. It's over there, but you probably saw it. I wear a fanny pack as well that I carry snacks and things like that in. Food bag. Secondly, I just bring like extra t-shirt, extra pair of socks, and I brought a pair of shorts in case I get ridiculously hot. So that's my suitcase. Kitchen items. I just bring a MSR pocket rocket and a 500 milliliter Tokes pot with a fuel canister. I'll show you later when I cook. I always just bring a little bag. This is my electronics bag. It has my battery charger, my headphones, my headlamp, all that kind of stuff, electronics. Poop bag. I actually don't carry a trowel. I find most of the places I hike, I can actually use a stick to dig a little trench or a cat hole for my poop. But this is just chapstick, antacids, ibuprofen, baby wipes, that kind of stuff. Everything you need for hygiene. This is my hammock hook, luxury item. Hangs from my ridgeline so I can watch my movies from my phone and just look at it like that. My Sea to Summit pillow, it's just a tiny little crappy pillow that works great for a hammock. I do not like this in a tent. My poofy coat, even in summer trips, I always bring it and I always wear it. Next, my Enlightened Equipment quilt. It's going to get down to 45 tonight, so I'm going to test its abilities. This is a 40-degree quilt, I think. I should say more than warm enough in that. By Enlightened Equipment. It's a down quilt. This is my Dyneema hammock tarp. I'll show you that when I do setup. And getting close to the bottom, hammock straps. And my Superior Gear hammock, which I'll be setting up here shortly. This is a 45-degree hammock as well, but Superior Gear, I have tested them beyond their limits. My 30-degree hammock I took down to 15, so I have no doubt I will be plenty warm tonight. And then the final thing I pack along, usually, stakes for my tarp. Usually I bring my Helinox chair, but I knew this was going to be a hard, hilly trip. So I just cut a little Thermarest Z-Coil pad in half, and I bring this to sit on instead of a chair. And it also provides some back support inside my backpack since it's frameless. So that's an empty backpack. Everything I need has just been shown to you. So let's set up camp, and I'll kind of show you the ropes on that. All right, hammock setup 101. You can start with the hammock or you can start with the tarp. Tonight I'm starting with the hammock because, to be honest with you, I may not even put the rain fly up because it's about 0% chance of rain. But the first thing I like to do, generally, if the weather's right, is to start with the hammock so I can hang the rain fly accordingly. So the first thing you start with is a couple of straps. There's a lot of different varieties. I have the Superior straps, which is a really pretty simple setup with a buckle that you can loosen and tighten really easily. I won't get into details today because I'm sure you're not all hammock campers. But I generally start with both my straps a little above eye level. And hammocking, so you know, is a very personal thing. Some people like it to be less sag, some people like it to be a deep droopy sag. It all depends. This is how I do it. So a good place to start for this is once you get your hammock hung, in order to tweak it, they say that one of the most comfortable ways to hang is at about a 30-degree angle, which is about the equivalent of doing this. So about that angle right there. So just eyeballing it, that looks pretty good. Next thing I like to do basically is just sit in it and see how it feels. Another notable thing with hammocks is I like to have my feet end a little higher than my head end, so I always pay attention to that. So I will set up this tarp just so you guys can kind of get a gauge on how to do that. I have a Dyneema tarp, which I invested in heavily, basically because they're extremely lightweight and they don't retain water, and it's a really strong fabric. It doesn't stretch at all, so it's simple for me to hang and fast. Hopefully, we'll see if I can prove that. Now, a simple thing to remember, I learned this from Rob Pelton, hammock expert, is the longer you make your stake lines, the more taller your roof is going to be. In other words, it'll be more like this versus like this. So if they're nice and short, that's when you're batting down the hatches when it's going to rain. If you know it's not going to rain, like tonight, I lengthen them as long as I can. That gives me just more space underneath. Voila! So I've dug my cat hole for my first poop. I kid. It's actually a small fire pit I have dug. I only plan on having a little kindling fire tonight. So dig a fire pit that is appropriate to the fire you're going to have. I'm going to have a tiny one for maybe 15 or 20 minutes before bed. Then I will make sure there's no embers or bury it with the dirt that I've dug out. And then in the morning I'll make sure it is cold to the touch. So you've got camp set up. You're wondering what to do next. Well, there's a variety of things. One of them, my favorite, you're looking at it. Chill. Just a swinging. And not in that way, you weird pervs. Anyway, so I'm just going to chill here, relax for a little while, rest my legs. I dug a little fire pit over here for just a kindling fire later tonight while I cook supper probably. And I'm going to head up this ridge here in a bit and check out sunset before supper. So until then, I'm going to chill in my Superior Gear hammock and just enjoy the sounds of nature and try not to do too much of this crap. Do an express version of Leave No Trace principles. Told you a little bit about how to keep a fire. Most important factor being that it's cold to the touch in the morning. That's the most important factor. Secondly, that you cover it up and make it look like you never had a fire there. That's in circumstances where you're dispersed camping like I am tonight, where you're not in an established campsite. Next, one of the most important things we talked about a little bit briefly too is when you're going out to take yourself a grumpy, make sure that you're going to dig a cat hole. They say 6 inches deep. A lot of people will bring a trowel. I find that a stick will work in soil like I'm in here, which is really easy to dig, easy to put your tent stakes in, just the perfect soil for camping. But if you know it's going to be rocky or tough to dig around roots and that type of thing, bring a trowel for sure. And then pack out all of your garbage, being another massive one. So anything you bring in, I just bring like a gallon Ziploc bag for any of my refuse. I don't know the fancy word for garbage. And haul it all out of here. So those are the really, really important ones that I can think of right now. I'll bring up a few more. There are 7 principles of Leave No Trace. You can look that up at lnt.org. But I think I covered the basics. I spoke a little too soon on Leave No Trace. Talk honest truth about toilet paper, shall we? There's a couple options. These are called Porta wipes. You just put a few drops of water on it and it becomes a nice like wet wipe for you. I prefer wet wipes for this option because chafing is a horrible experience when you're 12 miles away from your car. Or you can bring like these wilderness wipes or just good old TP, obviously. But again, my big thing is going with like the wet wipe. They do also make a bidet, which I know some of my friends use, and I just have not quite subscribed to the bidet quite yet. So that's an option as well. But the honest truth about me, when I'm digging I dig a really nice cat hole and I take my deuce. I actually bury them if they're biodegradable. I make sure that they're buried deeply. The most disgusting thing on trail is seeing somebody else's poopy butt wipe, even when you're just walking out to take your own dump. So I bury it. A lot of people would say that they pack that out as well. That's their prerogative. I just feel if it's biodegradable and 6 inches buried, I'm okay with that. Mostly because it's just a little bit too far for me to have to carry that out in a bag, or the walk of shame back to camp with your dirty TP. So that's a butt wipe speech. It was awkward. So I patiently waited this sunset out, and now it's time to go start the fire and wait for the owls and the coyotes to go, hopefully. This is classic country for nighttime activity, which, to be noted out here, there's coyotes, white-tailed deer, raccoons, squirrels, owls, hawks, turkey vultures, and a whole lot more. So let's go make a fire. All right, there's a lot of ways to cheat and make a fire, but thanks to CoolQuest, they had us on their live stream and sent us this little gift package from McWick, which is an American-made company, and they make little fire starters that are all natural. Looks like a little candle. So tonight's my first trial of the McWick. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. The wood is real dry here. So I will time-lapse the fire starting, but let's fire up the McWick and see how the fire goes. thumbs up. All right, so cooking. You have basically a few different options. The most popular of which is isobutane or propane fuel mix. Most backpackers use these just because it's the most convenient. Not the most environmentally friendly, however, but I'm guilty of using one. So I'm going to use one of these along with a little MSR Pocket Rocket stove to cook dinner tonight. This stove simply folds out. Very lightweight. You can find a very inexpensive version of this on Amazon called the BRS, I believe, for about 15 bucks. It's actually even lighter than this, which is about 40. And so you fold it out. First tip I want to offer is make sure that this is turned off, the valve, so that you don't spew gas everywhere. The second tip is that when you're screwing it on and off, make sure the canister is level for the same reason. So basically you just thread it on until it is finger tight. And there is your stove. So a little dose of reality here. I have limited water and I have a long ways to walk before I get back to my water cache tomorrow. So I picked up this Mountain House beef stew today at Walmart because the local sporting goods store was closed until 11. And it takes 1 3/4 cups of water. So I'm going to opt for dry supper tonight, aka snacks, beef sticks, fig Newtons, etc. And tomorrow morning I will show you how the stove works when I make coffee. But just the reality of backpacking is I need to conserve water as I do have about probably 7 miles of hiking to do before I get back to my water cache. So sorry about that, folks, but I will show you how the canister stove works tomorrow, just in case you're curious. Okay, my tiny little fire is dying out. Finishing off my Rockstar off to your left. And before I go to bed, I will kick the dirt on the fire to put out all the embers. But I thought it wise to note that I should talk about food. So I'm not in bear country. I have really nothing to worry about other than rodents and raccoons, which are probably the most menacing food menaces. So I always just kind of hang it in a branch. But if you're in bear country, just go ahead and YouTube bear hang options. You have a bear vault, or you can hang a bear bag, and there's lots of great tutorials on YouTube for that. So again, I'm just in rodent country, so I'm just hanging it in a tree, maybe 6 or 7 feet off the ground. All right, what better time than now for a quick and riveting little discussion about insulation. So tonight's going to get down to about 45 degrees, and really it's a matter of knowing your gear. Some gear have comfort ratings, some have survival ratings. My Superior Gear hammock has a integrated underquilt, and it is rated for 45 degrees, and that is a comfort rating. So I know at 45 degrees I will be comfortable and warm, not just surviving. Same goes for my Enlightened Equipment quilt. This is a 40 or a 45, I don't recall, degree quilt. And again, in my experience, it is a comfort rating. I've had it down that low and been toasty warm. As a matter of fact, I am barefoot currently and in a short sleeve shirt. When it gets this cold, I do generally wear a beanie because I use a quilt, so I don't have any kind of thing over my head like a mummy sleeping bag does. But that is insulation in a nutshell. If you're a cold sleeper, I recommend going probably 15 degrees, at least 10, below the rating, even if it's a comfort rating. So if it's 45 degrees, you'd want a probably 30-degree bag or quilt. So, riveting insulation talk just before bedtime. How nice is that? Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow morning for some coffee, and then we'll wrap this little day in the life of a backpacker up for you. Good morning, everybody. I have checked the fire. There's no embers burning. Cover it up with leaves and the whole 9 yards. I buried it and leave no trace. So it looks like you have never been here before. One of the 7 principles. But I have a lot of hiking to do today, and I think I have kind of given you guys the general narration of what a day would look like. So basically, if you want more information, just repeat what I did yesterday. As always, feel free to comment down below. There's no way I could cover all of backpacking in one video, but we appreciate you watching, and if you're new to the channel, hope you stick around and watch some more videos. YouTube's like a little extended family to me, so we really enjoy sharing our memories with you. Without further ado, be yourself, be happy, and have a good day, everybody. Catch you on the next adventure.